Hey, good morning, guys. You may notice that Dan has a different background today.
I do.
Dan, where are you?
I am in lovely Washington, D.C., in our nation's capital. I'm currently in my mother's guest bedroom here. And why am I dressed in a tie? Because we have some fun huddle business later today in D.C., and you may or may not see us, the three of us together on TV later today. We'll have more to say about that later, but fun, exciting times growing the huddle.
Hence why I'm wearing heavy makeup today and look all dolled up.
Oh, I knew I forgot
for the cameras, guys. For the cameras. Yeah, no, it'll be fun. We actually haven't been together physically, the three of us in the same room for since the show started. So this is
since Sean's naval swearing it. Yeah, since your promotion ceremony.
The lawyers that we use are the same people that use Janet and Michael, and they're never allowed to be in the same place at the same time. It was like a Jackson thing.
Definitely.
Check out Instagram. We may have a group family photo later tonight.
Family photo may count on it, Dan. Count on it.
Depends how many cocktails we've had. Yep.
Let's take it after a few cocktails. Tomorrow's show is going to be interesting. That's for sure. So if you're watching right now, do us a favor. Go to our channel on YouTube at the DC Huddle. I was talking to someone the other day who says they watch us every single day. I love the show. They're watching on Twitter. This person's watching on Twitter right now. And I'm like, make sure you subscribe. Everyone go to YouTube and subscribe, sign up. Our numbers are going up. We're really happy about that, but we want to keep seeing them go up even higher. So please do us a solid.
Yeah.
Today's 5, we're going to talk about Davos takeaways here. The art of the deal, or the art of the off-ramp or exit for President Trump on Greenland. Is Cuba next? An interesting story in the Wall Street Journal suggesting the administration is eyeing regime change there as well. We'll talk about the latest in Minnesota. Well, I guess not Minnesota, because ICE is apparently now going into Maine. So we'll talk about whether Maine is the new Minnesota and the politics of that for Susan Collins. Also, this new reporting from the AP that ICE officers are being told that they don't need a warrant to enter houses to arrest people. We'll talk about this Clinton contempt vote yesterday, which was really interesting. I will say at the top, I'm feeling very vindicated in my online Twitter fight with the Clintons, who were telling me I was full of shit for saying, actually, you need to listen to a congressional subpoena. A bunch of Democrats, it turns out, agree. And we'll also talk about the politics of a snowstorm, given that, half the country is about to get hit in a really big way.
Well, let's be honest. If the Acela corridor gets hit, then the whole country is really figuratively getting hit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's it.
But they get a bonus because they don't have to shovel the snow, but they don't have to.
God bless the doorman building.
I'm not looking forward to snow shovel. If we get 2 feet, my goodness. Wow, that's going to be hard.
Here's my advice as someone who had to shovel as a kid, shoveled, in New York. The key is don't let it pile up. Keep going out every few hours so that you get because otherwise, if it starts to get wet and heavy and it's 2 feet, that can really start to hurt your back. So just every couple of inches, go out, shovel it off, put the salt down. You do that and it's more manageable.
You know how it's also manageable? The other option is you tell your kids, go out and shovel the snow.
That's why I have experience.
What do you do if your kid is 3 and cannot do that yet?
Yes, they can.
Husband,
yes, they can.
Get out there.
If they don't start young.
Yeah.
No,
yeah. Okay, fair enough. But my driveway is really long, so this is unfortunate. Okay, let's look at the day book here. So the president, obviously in Davos this morning, did a sort of an opening meeting on his board of peace in Gaza, talking to a bunch of heads of state there. He met with Zelensky, or is meeting with Zelensky now?
Yeah, now I believe. Yeah, it may be over, but.
Yeah. I mean, there was some talk at one point about whether the Ukraine, president would even come because of all the focus on Greenland, but it turns out he came to just to get some FaceTime with the president. Obviously a good choice on his part. And sometime today, Trump will be flying back to DC. So we'll get more and we'll follow that if he gaggles with reporters on the way out. The big headline on the Hill today is that former special counsel Jack Smith is going to be testifying in public. Expect there to be a ton of fireworks. He's expected to say that the president willfully broke the law. the laws he was sworn to uphold, and that he has proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And Republicans are going to grill him for getting access to their phone records, which they say sort of infringes on, speech and debate clause and sort of their rights as lawmakers not to be sort of spied on. At 11 o'clock, the leader of Greenland will hold a press conference. We'll obviously be watching that.
Total side note, like this whole deal that went down yesterday, no one was like, maybe we should ask that guy.
The leader of Greenland?
They asked Trump, and he's like, well, I assume they're on that they've been kept
Well,
loop.
don't you think that the NATO Secretary General would have gotten them on board on anything?
I do, but I'm just saying.
But to Sean's point, it's their country and territory, and they're like bit players. It's
right,
like
Mark Rutte was
well, we'll see what they say. Maybe they blow up the whole thing today.
No. I think whatever Mark Rutte gave away, they're like, he's like, listen, you're buying into this.
Well, it'd be interesting too, because he speaks and Trump may just go to the back of the plane, and we may have dueling press conferences as he flies over Greenland. Maybe they'll bring the plane down low just so the people of Greenland can wave. Yep.
Oh boy.
It's now called Trump land.
Also at 1 o'clock, Hakeem Jeffrey is going to be holding a press conference. We'll keep an eye on that. And the big event in, the U.S. at large, the vice president's heading to Minneapolis today. He's going to be doing a roundtable with local leaders and community members, and then deliver remarks on restoring law and order in Minnesota. So we'll keep an eye on that. Before we jump in, let's do a word from our sponsors. If you have this New Year's resolution, like I do, that eventually you're going to start working out again, you may want to look into CBD from CB Distillery. Obviously, when you hit the, gym or go to hot yoga or start doing ballet again, and you haven't done it for years, which I haven't, you're going to get sore. You get muscle aches, you get joint pain. But it turns out CBD from CB Distillery, they have these great balms. Everybody's talking about them. You just put them on your skin, and there's a lot of relief from that. So perhaps if you are in an area that's going to be hit by a huge storm, and you're going to have to take a page from what Sean Spicer just said and shovel snow every 30 minutes, maybe you want to go online right now and order this to help with the soreness there. And
or if you're shoveling snow and you're sore, you sore back, like you can't sleep, because little CBD Distillery.
There you go.
I know a lot of people, young, old, when I was on Dance with the Stars, people, it's like, it's a level of relief that's just different. So I know a lot of people who rely on this.
And don't forget, guys, they have solutions for sleep as well. Over 90% of CBD customers say they actually sleep better when they use it. Product availability depends on your individual state regulations. Everything they sell, though, is premium quality, third-party tested, and free of artificial dyes and fillers. And they have over 2 million happy customers and a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you guys are ready to start working out like me, but don't want the pain from it in the aftermath, go to cbdistillery.com and use my code HUDDLE for 25% off at cbdistillery.com, code HUDDLE.
Yeah, once you're nice and relaxed, you know what you're going to do is you're going to get into bed to get that good night's sleep. And you're going to be putting on a pair of those cozy earth pajamas that Dan, look, I mean, like, you can't beat them. You can't beat the cozy earth pajamas. You wake up, you put the joggers on, the pants. I was going through my closet this week and cleaning out, and I'm like, I was amazed the number of cozy earth pants that I have, as well as the joggers. You can't go wrong. There is nothing on that site that you will regret. The blanket, towels, joggers, pants, eye masks. It's like a guaranteed gift factory for you and all of your family and friends.
Well, speaking of that, I am at my mother's. She has old windows that are a little leaky. Last night, she was saying that she gets cold at night, and she literally says, is the Cozy Earth blanket really that warm? I said, Mom, it is. And guess who is going to be getting a Cozy Earth blanket? My mother. So we have another, hopefully committed, happy customer very soon.
Yeah, and by the way, it's a lot cheaper to get a Cozy Earth bubble blanket than replacing a lot of windows.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Very true.
Also, you can use code HUDDLE. You get 20% off the bubble blanket, towels, anything else.
All right, guys, make sure you get that before the snowstorm. Thanks to both of our sponsors. Let's jump in. So we'll start with Davos and the art of the deal / the art of the exit, or the off ramp. I have a piece up in my newsletter that I sent around last night around 9 o'clock. And I sort of write about how, if you're a good negotiator, you have to know when to hold the line, when to drive a hard bargain, and when to take a deal. And for the president, when he arrived in Davos, it was pretty clear that he needed to get to a deal very quickly. I mean, polls here in the U.S., they show that the idea of taking over Greenland is less popular even than the administration's handling of the Epstein files. You have Republicans on the Hill who are sounding the alarm about what this could mean for NATO, the stock market taking a tumble amid the tariff threat. And then, of course, with the midterms around the corner, there's a lot of chaos here on the home front in Minnesota with ICE. So the president knew clearly going into this trip that it was time to find the off-ramp. And despite saying for a long time, for weeks now, that he would stop at nothing but a full U.S. takeover of Greenland, the president announced yesterday that he, number one, will not use military force to go after Greenland, and number two, was backing down on tariffs. And he also rolled out this sort of framework for a deal, which it does not look like has any sort of U.S. takeover. It sounds like from the reporting out there that the Danes will allow the U.S. to have sovereignty over some pockets of Greenland where they can build new military bases, but that the Danes will, of course, keep sovereignty over the island writ large. So, Sean, some Republicans are saying, that this is what he wanted all along. This is just the art of the deal. But I also wonder, couldn't he have gotten something like this a few weeks ago without stirring up all the headlines here?
Maybe. But I think he loves that. It's not just the deal. It's getting the deal. So I think he enjoys that part of it. And so, I guess the question is, could you have? Maybe, but does it matter? Again, sometimes I think we get too wrapped up in the process and say wow, how did it look and who said what and when, and as opposed to what did we actually get? And what will this mean?
I'm going to be curious to see how he talks about it. Does he sound really excited? Obviously, we talked yesterday about how he probably got no sleep over there and has been operating on no sleep for 2 days. He didn't seem super enthusiastic when talking about it to reporters. So we'll see what it sounds like. But was there a minerals agreement?
Well, look, there's two things. I see Dan grinning, so let me get ahead of this because I almost feel like it can channel Dan through osmosis here. The details are going to matter. So I'll just concede that. But there's two things that are important. The Trump telegraphed it before this meeting, which was licensing and sort of leases, meaning the current deal that we had sort of allowed us certain parameters to do certain things militarily. What at least I've heard is that we get longevity there and a lot more guaranteed areas that we don't have to, there's no negotiation. The degree of certainty, we've talked about a lot of times in terms of businesses and tariffs. If you are the US and you know that you can put a base somewhere and you're not going to have to worry about a future negotiation about what you can and can't do. You think about what we've had to deal with in Puerto Rico. I mean, there's a lot of military history of putting something somewhere and then having to remove it later on. Having certainty matters. Having access to certain aspects of the land, which is what I understand is part of this, matters. So the longevity piece can't get underplayed. And if that's really what he's talking about, then I think it was a great deal.
Dan, my phone was lighting up with Democrats who were texting me 2 emojis, a chicken and a taco. Obviously, this is a reference to the left's favorite taunt. Trump always chickens out on tariffs.
That would be Wall Street's favorite term, but okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, okay, sure, both. Go, your take on this, your response.
Look, I think you said it, which is you start with the premise that Greenland is a part of Denmark, that is a part of NATO, and has been a strong U.S. ally. Greenland and Denmark and NATO are on Team USA as a rule. They are not on Team China or they are not on Team Russia. We have a military presence, as we have had since the Cold War, since the Second World War, on Greenland. So you start with the fact that that is what we went into this with, and that is what we are now kind of exiting with. Now, I hear what Sean's saying. We're going to potentially get some more land to build a more robust military presence. But the Greenland and NATO never said, we do not want the United States to help defend Greenland. They've never said that. They've always been like, in fact, why are you doing this? We're already all on the same team. So you have gone through, both on the world stage, a huge brouhaha that it appears for the first time, Europe kind of had enough and is now seriously reevaluating, not just, as Sean says, their defense spending and that stuff, which is good, but can they trust and work with us? That is not good, which I think Trump even knew, which is one of the reasons he wanted out of this. The second is all politics is local. The domestic politics of this were terrible for him. So you did all of this. As Sean said, he kind of likes to kick up the left in like the New York Times. And I think he takes pleasure in like the heads exploding. But I don't get, you got no political benefit domestically from this. The only people cheering are your most diehard supporters who are just that. So, you know, as a Democrat, like it's great.
I guess I wonder, does that change though, given that he's taken a deal that is less than, you know, what he was claiming he was willing to do in terms of tariffs or like, you know, military something being on the table? Like, I'm thinking about Venezuela, right? When we first, you know, took Maduro, there was a sense that the public opinion would be very much against this, and that, you know, people don't want American boots on the ground. You get a couple weeks out, find out that was a pretty narrow, limited thing. And now the popularity of that is growing up. Could we see people become more excited about this if he sort of closes this chapter, strikes this deal? We've got a bigger military presence there. You know, NATO allies are putting more, you know, firepower in the region too, to sort of protect against China, Russia. Like, over time, if it stays narrow like that, Dan, couldn't it become more of an accomplishment?
It could. I mean, look, I think you and I were texting last night. I think the right is cheering, the left is laughing, and I think the middle probably kind of shrugs its shoulders and says, okay, he got something. I agree with you. Was it worth it? And at the end of the day, what are you doing for me to help my life? Sean has made the point with Venezuela. He can say, there are oil tankers coming here with oil that's going to lower gas prices, that is going to benefit your life. And I think the average person says, amen, right? Kind of Sean's point. I don't care about the process. And by the way, I love our military and this kind of cool what we did. Here, I don't know. I mean, you're talking about a long-term thing. You're going to build the Golden Dome, part of it up there. Okay, like good, but, you know, TBD.
Let's move to Sparkle Barbie. So President Trump was obviously the star of the World Economic Forum, but Gavin Newsom was there, and he's gotten a ton of praise from Democrats for trolling the president and going after him in these speeches and telling allies they need to stick it with him. I stick it to him. I just keep coming back to this notion that whether you agree with the president's policies or not, like, Dan, isn't he undercutting the president with allies and other world leaders by like telling them to ignore him? And like, I just, couldn't that be a vulnerability for him at some point? I know maybe not now, but like,
no, I mean, I think post-Trump that just isn't going to apply, because Trump did it left and right, you know, all the time, whether it was with Ukraine or with China or basically with anybody. He would literally live tweet and criticize the president of the United States and call him weak and a fool, and countries were stupid. And, you know, so look, you even go back to when Trump first came into office, and in 2016, Sean, you were there, and, you know, they were talking to the Russians before they got into office about deals. So I know, I mean, Sean, you can say it wasn't nefarious, fine. But the point is, he wasn't even president yet. And he was turning around and saying, don't worry about the guy there. You know who's coming into office soon, which historically you did not do until you were, you know, took the power. But look, I think I mentioned this the other day. For Newsom, nobody running for 2028 on the Democratic side really has foreign policy heft. And Newsom is kind of establishing it as, again, the spokesperson, speaking for Blue America, in your face, telling European allies you're getting played, which I can tell you is how Blue America feels. So whether he's right or wrong, just like Trump got kudos on the right for never giving in and constantly kind of, you know, going up against Biden, Newsom, in my opinion, the whoever made the decision to not let him into that speech at the USA House.
Oh, right.
It's I've already gotten 2 fundraising appeals. I mean, he's just racking up names and racking up support. And every Democrat running will now be asked, do you support Gavin or do you support Trump? And once you start that battle, everyone else looks small and you look big.
So a couple of things. First of all, I will, without wasting too much time, I will dispute the what went down with Russia. Again, if you want to go down this road, I'll be glad to have a conversation about John Kerry and others that had discussions with world leaders while they were out, before they took office, after office. So I'll put a pin in that. But I do take issue. I will say the thing about the Newsom thing, to be honest with you, is that it kind of goes back to a lot of things we discussed, where it depends on where you sit.
Yeah.
I think for Dan's team, I get it. They're like, wow, look at this guy. He shows up at Davos. He's taking the president on, and no one else is there. To be honest with you, and I am the biggest lover of a good political stunt. Like I built part of my career on it. So I get it, but I also kind of wonder how many people go, it looks cheesy. Like, what is he doing? He's governor of California. I mean, I don't know. I mean, and I'm saying I don't know the answer. I'm not even coming out and saying it's a bad idea. I'm just saying, I wonder, it's a jump ball that you're gambling that, yes, you definitely probably pick up some support in your primary, which is what you have to win first and foremost. So, okay. Admittedly, I just don't know long-term, does that make you look bigger or smaller? I guess time will tell. But again, the one other thing is, if we have the element, Newsom did what Newsom does well, which is, instead of taking the insult and getting all pissy with it, he made a meme out of it. Can we throw it up if we can? I mean, look, say what you will, but like, the ability to laugh at yourself, have fun, is important. And,
I think I know what I'm getting you for Valentine's Day. Yep.
Oh, I already have. I'll throw you back to when this, I'm very familiar with sparkly things or whatever. There was you mentioned 2016, Dan. Take a listen to me back on Wolf Blitzer during the 2016 convention.
Let's talk to it.
Hit it.
Melania Trump said you work hard for what you get in life. John Legend said work hard to be anything you want in life. Kid Rock said work hard to be anything you want in life. Melania Trump said the strength of your dreams and willingness to work for them. Twilight Sparkle from My Little Pony said, this is your dream. Anything you can do in your dreams, you can do now. I mean, if we want.
Yeah, I've been quoting Sparkle Pony for quite some time. So,
Pony.
Yeah. Don't you want to talk about memes that came out of that? I have a few that were sent my way after that one.
You haven't aged a bit there from that clip.
Yeah.
Sean was just getting on the 2016 craze on social media. Well done.
Let's move on to our next topic. Is Cuba next? So there's a clear effort by the White House to pivot the president back to domestic issues, right? We talked yesterday that before Air Force One landed in Davos,
We're already all on the same.
Susie Wiles was telling reporters that starting next week, the president's going to travel every week somewhere here in the U.S. to talk about, his domestic agenda, et cetera. But it looks like he's not done, in particular on foreign policy. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that the U.S. is actively seeking regime change in communist China by the end of the year. They're looking for
communist China or Cuba?
I'm sorry, communist Cuba. Thank you.
Thank you.
No. China's next.
That would be something.
We're in the seas.
Wow. So they're looking for insiders in Cuba who could cut a deal to end communist rule. 2 points. The administration assesses that Cuba's economy is close to collapse after Maduro's, capture and the takeover there. But they also say they don't have a concrete plan to end the communist government that has held power in the Caribbean for 7 decades. So, what is the plan? TBD, nobody really knows. So, Sean, the Inner Circle, again, they want him to pivot back domestically, but they also have interests in this part of the world, like Marco Rubio. This is like
Marco Rubio,
right?
Marco Rubio.
And South Florida. And all of exactly.
So
I literally got stopped on the street the other day by a neighbor's relative that said, I just want to tell you, if you talk to the president, tell him thank you. I'm Cuban. What's going on in Venezuela? I hope we're next. And it was like emotional about it. This wasn't like just a hi, how you doing? Right. This is a very emotional and personal issue for, I assume hundreds of thousands of Americans of Cuban descent. So I think the thing that's interesting to me about this is that after they got Maduro, the talk became that Cuba would sort of fall on its own because they couldn't sustain themselves without the support of Venezuela, et cetera. So I'd be shocked if they do anything as much as just sort of are prepared if it falls.
If you were advising them, would you tell them to wait to do anything until after the midterms? Like, this is just not.
I would. I mean, look, Dan's brought this up before, but just like we need to eye on the prize. It's the right thing to do. And again, it's if you think about the influence that has strategically and who plays down there. I mean, the Russians are very, very much like, can we come over and hang out? It is important, but I think that like then pick something else and say, hey, I'm going to give up the Board of Peace. I'm going to give up Greenland, but you can't have 10 foreign policy issues going at the same time. And it's not just in terms of bandwidth. I mean, from a national security standpoint, we've got to keep our eye, especially on China, at all times. So I mean, I think for a myriad of reasons, politically, policy wise, et cetera, it's like, if you really want that to happen, then you've got 2 years after the midterms when hopefully you'll settle. The Board of Peace will be going. You probably have a deal on Greenland and then pivot a little. But I don't know that there's, and again, I don't have the intel, so maybe there is a rush, but I'm not aware of it.
Dan, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I think two things. I actually think that Sean is right, which is that it is the right thing to do now, in that we talked about this, that in early December, there were stories that if we were to go into Venezuela, the real strategic play here was to destabilize Cuba, to kind of start cleaning out our backyard, so to speak, to get rid of these regimes that, as Sean say, the Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, they all swap services in kind of a barter system. And if you start taking out pieces of the foundation, you're going to start to see collapse. And with China and Russia, you're going to make it more difficult. So I think, if a Democrat came into power right now, given what happened in Venezuela, I think you would be saying, how do we kind of get Cuba to fall? How do we push it over the edge? And then what comes next? But I think the flip side of this is, politically, you cannot have these conversations out in the Wall Street Journal and stuff, because, again, the average person saying, what are you doing for me? The real lives of real people. And I think, as Sean said, you have Greenland and Venezuela, and we haven't even talked about what's happening in Gaza still, and Ukraine. And then you proactively put Cuba on the board, because if you destabilize it, you own it. So what happens if hundreds of thousands of Cubans start fleeing because there's a civil war? Do we intervene? So I think you got to be really careful to not overload the circuit board. But it is the responsible thing to do, and the right thing for the country, to now look hardly at Cuba and say, can we, kick the communists out?
Let's move on to ICE. So the nation obviously has been focusing on Minnesota, but ICE is turning its attention now to Maine. DHS announced yesterday that agents launched, quote, Operation Catch of the Day. They're surging officers there for arrests. You giggle, but I'm sure some people would say these are people too. I digress.
No, I do the fishing and the title, like Maine.
It's lobster.
Yeah, that's right.
What kind of catch? Fish or lobster?
Lobster.
Definitely.
Lobster. Yeah, I was going to say Maine lobster.
So this is putting a new spotlight, guys, on Senator Susan Collins. She's a centrist up in Maine, blue state. I feel like this could be helpful for her, Sean. I'm curious your take on this, because on the one hand, yeah, it puts her in an awkward position because she's going to have to comment on all of this and what the administration is doing, and the left hates it and a lot of independent voters hate it. But on the other hand, if she comes out against it and is critical of the administration, doesn't that help her in terms of building her brand and running for re-election and looking like she can stick it to the party? What's your thought on that?
I don't think Susan Collins needs to show. I mean, her brand is pretty solidified. She's been around for, I think, probably 30 years, right? I spoke at their Lincoln Day dinner last year. She's very well liked by the party. She is very politically attuned into issues. I mean, she can. I was shocked at how well versed she is in the Second Amendment. Maine is sort of got a very vibrant Second Amendment because of the nature of its geography. I mean, it's very rural. That's part of the culture. She's very in tune with that. I'm obviously socially liberal on things like abortion, but my point is, she doesn't need any help. I mean, from a branding standpoint, people know her. She's very accessible in the state. So I don't know that she needs to show that she can stand up. In fact, I would say this is not helpful to her, because if I were running against her, I'd say, this is the woman who says that she has all this experience, all these connections, and can get to the president, and he still did this anyway. Why not get me? I'll stand up and tell him no and sue him. And I mean, if you're Grant Plattner or Janet Mills, you can come out swinging hard, and they can say things she can't. And again, I would just, if I were them, I'd say, look, Susan Collins has been around forever, and she can't stop this. Get me in and I'll do it. So I actually think that the White House has got to be very careful on this one.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think the president will come after her? Sorry, Dan, to interrupt. Like, if she speaks up, and she will speak up, because like you said, this is her brand. And he's already gone after her over her war powers vote. So, but then again, I just feel like she can campaign on it. You would think Republicans in the area would give her a lot of leeway to do what she needs to do.
So if you were like the first term member from the 1st or the 2nd district and wanted to like show that you could, I get it. But like every single person in Maine knows who she is and knows her brand. So she doesn't need to prove her bona fides. And that's kind of in my why I'm saying, like, I think for her, it's more trouble than it's helpful.
Dan?
Yeah, I agree, because look, he hasn't endorsed her yet either. So the specter that if she gets too far away from him, he doesn't say, that's it, I'm going to endorse a primary challenge, is always possible. But I think this is horrible for her, because you know what, Democrats, I mean, Sean was kind of going there. Where's the accountability and the oversight by Congress of ICE? Where are the hearings? Where and Collins can say, I agree, but this is where, you know, we've lost in Montana and other places, because ultimately what you say is their leadership, that brand, is not willing to do it. And you can try to separate yourself from your party all day long, which she's successfully done. But when it's in your own backyard, I think this is not good for her. I think this is going to be a huge problem. And I'm curious about Mills and Plattner now, because how much does Janet Mills try to show the left that I can fight this? Right. Or does she try to, you know, work with the president, get it done?
No
like,
way.
you know, well,
not with Plattner on her heels.
Yep. I'll be curious.
Well, the only thing that Collins could do that would be smart is to say, I sat down with Tom Homan or you know, so, you know,
it's going to be JD Vance. She has a relationship with him.
But say, hey, let's go in strategically. We will help you with the criminals, and we will be a model of how to do this right. Get these people that got small lobsters that they weren't supposed to. I'm kidding. But like illegal lobsters from Canada. But I think that like that's the only possible politically positive outcome, where she could be the person that shows how ICE could do this in a very surgical way. Aside from that, I'm not sure. I think
and I would also just say, because Vance is in Minnesota, Michelle Tafoya yesterday tried to walk this line where she was extremely empathetic for good and what happened, but then said ICE has a right to be here and people can't get in the way. So I'm going to be curious if she is on the stage with Vance, if she is next to Vance.
That's
Vance's tone, right? Because she has to ultimately sell this every day on the ground in Minnesota. And she yesterday tried, we said on this show, I wonder, as she's a candidate, how she will answer questions like ICE, abortion, and other things. By the way, she said she's totally pro-choice, which I also found very interesting, because Minnesota's got some pretty conservative evangelicals up in the northern part of the state. So we will see what people's appetite are and whether or not Vance can walk the line and these candidates with him can walk the line.
And just to read her quote, when she was asked about Renee Good's death, this is what she said. She didn't, you know, criticize her for interrupting a law enforcement operation. She just said plain and simply, I want to take politics out of this. What happened to Good was awful. It was tragic. I hurt for her family. It should not have happened. And she left it at that, to your point, Dan. Something else we want to get to with ICE, or in regard to ICE, we've obviously seen a lot of these videos online and allegations that immigration officers are forcefully entering people's homes without warrants. The AP reported yesterday, or maybe it was this morning, that they have a new policy, that there's an ICE memo that they were able to intercept that argues that they have the power to do this without a warrant if they're there to arrest someone. The department's basically saying they have agency warrants, not something from a judge, but if they're going to arrest someone, they can come in with the documents, they have it, and that's that. No, I get that they're doing this, Sean, because a lot of, activist types have been telling illegal immigrants, don't open the door unless you see a judge and a warrant from a judge. But is there concern that this, infringes on the Fourth Amendment?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, look, I think that
so you're saying that they shouldn't do this?
I think they need to be very, very careful with this. I think the idea of I'm not, we talk about this jokingly. Don't take medical, economic, or legal advice from me. I would make sure that you are buttoned up legally. The idea of saying that you don't need a warrant in pursuit of someone because I don't, that to me on its face, I'm intrigued by the fact that how you can't do that on a U.S. citizen, right? You'd have to announce.
Well, they're saying you can't. What they're saying is that an administrative warrant, in other words, like they're judge and jury, right? So the agency itself can issue administrative warrants. And what they're saying is traditionally the courts have said you need a warrant signed by a judge. Therefore, advocates have been telling for years, not just in the Trump administration, but for years to immigrants, do not open your door unless they have a warrant by a judge. And obviously, we've seen videos. To me, we just talked about Maine. Here's the question. This was leaked by a whistleblower. What is Congress doing? Where's the accountability? Where are the answers? These ads are going to write themselves. And the fact that as you say, Sean, it's going to get challenged in court.
Right.
I remember something called the Tea Party. Don't tread on me, right? Distrust the government. And here you are having an agency literally say, we decide, and we can literally break your door down, even if you're a U.S. citizen.
Look, for everybody in MAGA world that's saying we need to do this, just stop for a second and think, what happens when they say you're a pro-life activist? We're going to go in. We think you violated the FACE Act, and we're going to use that as the method, the sort of rationale for breaking down your door. We would go nuts. Here's my thing. If let's just to play this out, here's how I'd rather do this. One, get a legal justification to do this, to say there's a judge in the X circuit that said that you can use an administrative warrant. If that's the case, okay. If not, then wait the people out. The bottom line is that if you run around a house and you surround them and say, hey guys, we got you surrounded, we would do that with a criminal. Every cop show shows we've got the house surrounded. Come out with your hands up. What are we worried about? If they're that bad of a person, surround the house, smoke them out, make them come out. But I just don't think the imagery of us, ramming down doors is going to do anything. It's going to, in the long run, hurt. So again, it's not that people sometimes want to run to the corners and say, well, then you're against get anyone who's not in this country illegally out. I'm right there with you. I'm saying that perception matters and how you do it matters. So unless you can get a judge to actually say an administrative warrant holds water, then smoke these people out, surround their houses and tell them, hey, we'll be here all day long until you come out.
A quick note that this memo is apparently being used to train new ICE officers and has been for months now. It sounds like it was actually written last May. So interesting that it's just now coming out. Okay, let's move to our next topic. We've got two more before we get to questions. This bipartisan contempt vote against the Clintons. 9 House Democrats voting to hold Bill Clinton in contempt yesterday.
On committee. So just as
on
a
committee, I should say. Yes,
that,
correct.
yeah,
it's going to go to the
that
full house.
Yep.
It'll go to the full house eventually, but this was House oversight. I mean, you have to give these members credit for being consistent. Looks like Hakeem Jeffries was whipping against this. Obviously, the Clinton sort of machine was working against this, although it clearly is not what it was, Dan, when it comes to the influence with the party. What's your take? Was this surprising to you?
I thought there would be few. I did not think there would be that many on the committee that would have done. I thought there might have been a couple. But I think, look, the fact that Hakeem Jeffries so actively worked against this and was apparently calling people on the committee saying, don't do this, don't do this. We talk about Mike Johnson looking weak at times. We talk Hakeem Jeffries, that is not a good look for you, that you could not stop a committee vote of overwhelming numbers like that. And it does speak to the fact that the Clintons are not what they once were. And this younger generation just looks at them and thinks, so what?
Well, and that's kind of what I mean. Look, I will say this. I give them credit. So to Rachel's question, yes.
Yeah.
But let's be clear. You don't feel any sense of reprisal when you're going against the Clintons now, right? And there is a difference. So I'm not, again, I will give them credit. I'm full stop. But it's not like you're going up against Gavin Newsom or somebody that you think, gosh, they could be ascent. They could be in power again. And the Clintons are yesterday's news. So you're not really taking that tough of a vote. It is a tough party vote. I think Dan's right on Hakeem. It makes him look unbelievably weak. Yeah. But then the big question is going to be what happens now. Yeah. And we talked about this yesterday. I think the Clintons, after seeing this, are going to scramble. And Comer asked for it last night. He was like, look, if they want to come and do a deal, again, my personal view is they didn't let, they squeezed Bannon and said, screw it, you're going to jail. They tried it. Bannon's team tried to work out a deal at the end. They wouldn't let him do it. So my view is get that vote up. If you're Mike Johnson, there's no downside to this. Put it on there. I want to have this debate every day of the week about, parity here. So put it up, get the vote, and send it to DOJ.
I'm very curious.
And the Clintons cut a deal. I think before the end of the week, the Clintons cut it. I think Friday evening, I would be watching the news between like noon and 7 p.m. or, over the weekend in the middle of a snowstorm. The Clintons will cut a deal.
Yeah.
And they will testify.
But Dan,
what the president will say about this if he's asked about it, because look, like he's still not complying with the law.
I was just going to say,
and he doesn't like this to begin with. Does he show some sympathy for them and say, nah?
No, I think he's gonna say, look, I don't want Bill Clinton caught up in this, as you know. Yeah. Here's what I'll tell you. Two things that are fascinating to me about this. Number one, on the Clinton front, I do think it'll be interesting. Like Comer's got himself into a pickle now, because this is where if he cuts a deal with them, the MAGA world's going to go nuts and say, why did you let him off the hook? The fish was on the hook. The second thing that I think will be is interesting to me is there have been reports about how many man hours and personnel are being used to go through these documents, right? So for all of these people, and again, I'm all about getting justice. So just to be clear on this, but like who have talked about resources of the government being used for whatever, all these Democrats that talked about the use of government for this and what we're doing, whether we're focused on the right things, have the entire Southern District in New York, from what I understand, literally going page by page because of the sensitivity of this matter. So you've now taken the Epstein matter and made it the entire focus of a good chunk of the DOJ.
Well, first off, that was a bipartisan thing and signed by the president. I would say this because I heard this from a Democrat last night. If the Democrats were to win the House, I have a feeling perhaps the president and the first lady may become subpoena targets in the Epstein matter.
They're going to go after Melania?
No, they just maybe will want to ask questions the way people want to ask Hillary.
So can we put it on tape right now? Do you believe that there is a difference between a sitting United States president and a former?
Absolutely.
Look, this is obviously the $1 million question, right? But I think they will enjoy the politics if Democrats have an overwhelming bipartisan support to subpoena to hold the Clintons in contempt. I think they would relish, or in 3 years.
Yeah. How long has the DOJ had its own internal rules that you can't prosecute a sitting president? I mean, like
forever.
I get it, but this just shows where, to Sean's point, what's good for the goose, I think maybe how some people are thinking about it.
Interesting. Okay, let's do our last topic. The politics of a snowstorm. Let's pull up this element that is making its way around Twitter right now on the left. Do we have it? This is a different one.
No, not yet. We'll get to the question in a second.
Okay, well, that's fine. But basically, people have been tweeting pictures of Senator Ted Cruz getting on a plane for, what is it, Laguna Beach? Oh, there it is. Okay. Getting on a plane for Laguna Beach ahead of this big storm that's coming. Obviously, there's a ice threat for Texas, and then also massive power outages being projected. And this has obviously caused problems for Cruz before, but I can report this morning, I texted someone close to him and asked about this. And I'm told that this was pre-planned work travel and he will be back before the storm hits. However, we're bringing this up because politicians are going to obviously be thinking about how they handle this in the next couple of days. Sean, Dan, you want to jump in? Any advice for people?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think this is like, in New York, we're all curious how Mamdani does plowing the snow, because just historically, whether Boston, New York, DC, anywhere, when there is a storm, elected officials, whether, for those who don't remember, Ted Cruz famously went on a Mexican vacation and his wife's texts to girlfriends were revealed when Texas last got hit by a snowstorm. New York City, Michael Bloomberg was in the Bahamas one time when a storm hit and famously wasn't at first, didn't think he needed to come back, kind of laughed it off and said, you can be in communication anywhere. When you're big storms, hurricanes, whatever, people look to their local leaders to be on top of it for information, to have services up and running as fast as possible. So not a particularly good look. I'm sure it's a fundraising trip for Cruz, but, just doesn't look good.
Yeah, look, there's one thing I would say, and I've said this before on so many issues, perception matters, right? So I will not make any excuses, but there is a big difference between a member of Congress and a senator during something that happens in a state, in an executive, whether you're a mayor or a governor that actually does stuff. It's not like the U.S. senator or the congressman calls the plows out or deals with anything. That's not their role. They do call FEMA if necessary or whatever, but a snowstorm or an ice storm is not their purview. I get it. It still matters because it's all about perception and image. But what I would call your attention to are the two new governors. And obviously, Dan mentioned Mamdani in New York. But if you're Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey or Abigail Spanberger in Virginia, I would, this is your first test.
Yep.
And the thing that's really interesting, and I learned this as a guy from Rhode Island that I never understood when I moved here. Like, I was like, why is it so difficult to get the roads plowed? Because like literally blizzard of 78 when I was a kid, we were at school like the next day. I'm kidding, but it was like, what's the big deal? 4 feet of snow? Who cares? We get to go outside, recess with snow. The difference for states that are smaller, when I sort of dug into this a little, is that snow removal equipment is expensive, and it's a cost benefit analysis. If you're Virginia, you go, how many days do we deal with snow a year? How much of an investment should we be making for a plow that's going to sit there, maybe twice a year? So, and
salt and everything.
Salt, right. So it's actually cheaper for us to take 36 hours longer to plow it than it is to buy 5 million. I mean, whatever.
Or let it melt in a day or two.
Right. But it's just, it really is a cost benefit analysis for many municipalities and states, how much they invest in this. So Virginia in particular, I think Spanberger is going to have a big challenge on her hand. Remember, this was something that Youngkin faced earlier. I think it was Tim Kaine, the United States Senator from Virginia, that was caught on I-95 for hours on end.
Oh, yeah. Good call.
And so this thing, luckily, is going to happen over a weekend, which will minimize the workplace impact. It's not like people are going to work or coming home from work during a commute. But this, I mean, we're talking in anyone who's not been to D.C., the mere discussion of snow, if you talk about snow, if you dream about snow, schools will close. Yeah. The government has a 2-hour delay if somebody thought about snow. Yeah. If they did a snowflake in arts and crafts. Yeah. So this is potentially, and that's 3 or 4 inches a big deal. So I think if there are projections, 22, 24 inches of snow, I think the governors are going to have a big thing. We're sitting here on the 22nd. There are 4 appropriations bills still not done as we careen towards the 30th. There is a vote supposedly scheduled, hopefully, potentially, maybe in the House today. And so you've got 4 big bills, a good chunk of the government not funded. And if we lose, 2-3 days, the beginning of the week, that has you're really careening towards the 30th a lot quicker.
Sean, do you think that and Rachel, you think the leadership tells people don't go home this weekend? Stay here because getting back could become, I mean, to your point, Sean, airport's not maybe fully back up and running because it's the whole region until Thursday. I mean, like if all the southern states.
What day is January 30th? What day is that?
I think it's Saturday. Is that right? Next weekend?
Oh, no, it's
Friday.
Okay, it's Friday. It's Friday.
Yeah.
I think they might tell everyone to stay here and then look out, everybody.
This goes back to what we just said. So you're a member of Congress, right? And Mike Johnson says, hey, we should stay here in case it, the snow. And you go, wouldn't I rather be in my district where I can say, hey, I'm here on the ground? I mean, like, you now just created your, what's better, being in Washington or being at home, being with your family where you can help? I mean, like, this is a conundrum for these folks right now, for a lot of them anyway.
Yep.
But I do think if you're a member from California, and you go, do I fly home and then get stuck where I can't get back?
And you can't even drive back because, the roads are going to be awful. So it's not like, if you get in your car 3 days in advance.
And the Spicer House has bought all the milk in the DMV.
Oh, I did our order this morning. Yep.
I have not done any. My fridge is empty right now. I need to work on this tomorrow and hope that there's actually groceries.
Tomorrow? Oh, Rachel.
Look, we got stuff today.
I got there. I already have the shovels out. I got
your blankets are washed.
Get the sleds in a couple hours.
I am excited for my daughter to get to use a present from Santa, which is a pink sled. She hasn't been able to do it yet. She literally sits in it in our house and is like, can you drag me around?
Aww,
and
that's awesome.
Like, she doesn't understand this is for snow yet. So anyway, it'll be great.
Well,
okay, let's take some questions. There was one here. Yes, that popped up earlier. Okay, Huddle Q&A. For Sean, my daughter's 8th grade trip to Washington, D is supposed to arrive via charter bus Monday night. Guess what? It's not coming. Driving up from Northeast Florida. Will anything be open in DC next week if 2 feet of snow falls Sunday?
I will say, so keep an eye on the model right now. First of all, coming up is going to be tough because the way this thing is happening is it's coming up from the south and then up. So you'll probably have a trouble getting through North Carolina for a little bit, into Virginia and then into DC. I think Monday is definitely in question. Tuesday, probably in question. Wednesday, you'll probably be able to, if you get 2 feet of snow, I think we're in a different ballpark. 10 inches or less, Tuesday, Wednesday, you're open. 3 feet of snow, you might be looking at Wednesday, Thursday. So, I mean, I would tell them if they're I have a hard time believing they're getting there. They're traveling on Monday, but that's my guess. Sorry, Sally.
Second that.
I just can't even imagine how DC is going to react to that much. And by the way, when I pulled up my app, my weather app, and first saw like 20 to 24 inches, I showed my husband and says, like, is this broken?
Yeah, like, I know. You had to do a double take.
Like,
I think the funny part is I'm remembering I was on active duty the last time that we got and I worked in a classified setting so that like we literally couldn't go into, I mean, you can't do any remote. So you had to be closed or open. But I remember like we were out, I think 4 days, and this is 2008, 2009, when we got, and I think it was 10 inches of snow. So 22, if we get over 20 inches, I at least if I recall correctly, I've got a picture somewhere where I can look at the yardstick, but I think we were at 10 or 12. So 22 would be just, completely
huge.
All right. Thank you, Sally. Let's take another one. And good luck with your daughter's trip. What is the likelihood of Clarence Thomas or Samuel Alito retiring in 2026 so the president can nominate a conservative replacement?
It's a great question. I mean, Thomas is the one that is getting older. I mean, it's amazing because I feel like Thomas was just elected or put on the court, but obviously it's not the case. This has been an issue on the left the last few presidents about justices retiring. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the ultimate example of like, boy, you should do this so that we can nominate a replacement. Sean Thomas is and his wife are part of the movement. They're very much. I have to think he's considering that between now and November.
Well, so I think the way that you have to look at this is threefold. One, you retire like in 2026 and give plenty of like runway to do this. Two is you wait until November and see if you lose the Senate. Because all you care about right now is the Senate.
Right. Yep.
And so if you lose the Senate, and I know everyone's going to argue about Merrick Garland and what Mitch McConnell, who cares? I mean, but the bottom line is that Republicans won't care. So if you did it if you waited to November and then said, hey, I'm going to do it so you could at least replace me before that, or you say, screw it, I'll wait another, like I'm going to go and risk it for 4 years. But you either have to go before the Senate flips or be willing to hang on for at least another 4.
Yep.
I mean, Thomas cares way too much. Like he is a solid, like he gets, like probably more than anybody, he gets Alito being a close second as well. But like these guys get what's at stake and they're not going to just willy-nilly make this decision. I think they're very smart. They're very politically astute. They're very concerned with history.
Yep.
So I think those are probably what's the thought process.
Dan, does that sort of dull the argument Chuck Schumer is making right now to voters and for candidates to get them to run? I mean, like, there's been clearly a focus in his conversations about the Supreme Court and like, this is why you should run. Like, this is why Dems need to take the Senate. Like, we need to safeguard against, you know, additional seats being filled by conservatives. But clearly, as Sean says, they're not going to retire if Dems are in charge.
Well, look, there's two things. There is retiring naturally, and then there is retiring, you know, because of death. And you know, when you are in your late 70s, I think it's, who is it? Sotomayor battles diabetes, has had, you know, various health issues. You don't want to run the risk. I mean, Ruth Bader Ginsburg is the ultimate example. I mean, she wouldn't get on, and then all of a sudden she passed away. So you just, I think for Democrats, given the way the court is now, they feel like we cannot, at worst, we can't let it get worse. So if a Democrat were to go because they pass away or they're incapacitated, we cannot risk Trump, you know, replacing, you know, Kagan or whomever. So I think it's still resonant.
Let's take another question. Oh, I saw this one in the chat. I like this. If Dems take back the presidency in 2028, will Trump be prosecuted and will Dems seek to put him in prison? Dan?
I mean, that's so funny. Were you talking to my mother, Bumps Johnson, who I had this conversation with last night? Mom, I love you. I'll just say I hope not. And I think that if you are a student of history as a Democrat, you would say, look, what happened under Biden's watch of all these prosecutions hurt the party. Okay, we're going to hear from Jack Smith, and you can give me all the reasons that they're all legitimate, or some of them are legitimate. But at the end of the day, we had a history that you just don't do this. And I think that whoever comes in would be smart to say, I am going to focus on the real lives of the real people. And I actually think the best thing to do, I would sign a pardon right away. First day, I'd walk in, say, Trump, the kids, it's history will be a harsh judge, but I'm pardoning them and we are moving on. That's how you put him in the rearview mirror. The best thing for him is to fight him, because he'll be like, great, I've lost the microphone. I've lost the Air Force One. I'm going to go to war with you on cable news every day and make your life hell.
Yeah, they keep him relevant if they do
Totally.
That. Yeah.
Pardon him.
Agreed. I mean, this would just be so politically stupid.
Yep.
And the one thing, again, we just talked about, you know, not just this question, but the previous one, where if we continue to escalate, like this is, again, if Dems said, great, when we take over the House, we'll then subpoena the president. Okay, they can go fight it out. And I get politically like short term, but like continuing to take it up a notch is not a smart move for anybody right now.
And I subscribe to the theory, I forget who it has the famous saying, that if you go through somebody's dirty laundry long enough, you're going to find something, right? I mean, it just, so to Sean's point, it make Trump's, in my opinion, egregious with some of his actions, but it is every president on everything in their background, their family members. No.
By the way, one other, going back to the previous compelling subject here, someone putting in the chat that you know, DC is currently projected at 7 to 10 inches. There are two models, and I would just say one has lesser snow and one has greater snow, and so it's going to be a battle of the Europeans versus the Americans once again.
And I will say different cell phones are using the different models, because my husband's cell phone is projecting that lower number while mine is looking at the 24 inches. So we'll see who's right. All right. Well, I think that's all we have time for today. Sean, want to tease anything in your panel?
Well, first of all, Sean, quick affiliates, we're going to go a little late. How was the show yesterday?
It was one of my favorite that I've ever done.
Okay.
And as I told you, it was.
Oh, did we get any recaps to play on here? I totally forgot about this.
Well,
We
so
should have
here's the
done
funny
that.
thing. I'll give you the quick. It was very civil, very pleasant. But the thing that was interesting is, as I write out, you've been on the show before. I mean, like I had 25 areas. I want to go through healthcare, voter ID. We started on immigration and never stopped.
Wow.
Literally, and I kept saying, "Can we move on? I want to hit like healthcare." And it was like, but wait, I want to get it. It was actually enlightening because there's some areas. Again, this goes back to the conversation with Roe, where we found some areas that it was like, okay, we all agree on this, but here's where we probably are fraying a little. I found it enlightening. I enjoyed the conversation. I think the feedback I got was because, Mike Nellis is not a wallflower, right? The guy's hardcore. Yumisi, who served in the Biden White House, again, very, very sharp in terms of her arguments. Batya she's a handful, right? That woman, she has her opinion and she makes it known. So it's very spirited, but it was very respectful and civil. I loved it.
That's awesome.
But I go the other way tonight.
Yeah, the panel Thursday night. Yep.
Yeah. So so we'll break down a lot of this. The Clintons, Trump's first year, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be.
Who's on the panel? Who's on the panel tonight?
So we got Larry O'Connor, Adam Guillet, who is the president of Accuracy in Media, and then Katie's going to kill me because we just changed out the. You're
saving the best for last. Don't worry.
Yeah. So
yep.
It'll be a reveal.
Yes,
big
exactly.
Big reveal.
Tune in to find out who that special third person will be.
That's right.
Stephanie Hamill. Hamill.
Thank you, Stephanie Hamill. I appreciate that.
Check in the mail. Well, I look forward to seeing you guys later today.
Yeah,
an exciting day. And if you want more of us, follow us on X. We may be on a channel near you later tonight.
Yeah,
Yep.
We're all going to be wearing our velour tracksuits.
Yep, that's exactly right. Yep.
All right.
All right, guys. We'll see you tomorrow, 8:30.